Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come up to this spot right here. And I want you all to stand right where these balls are. And I want you to take a look at this putt. And each of you take a tee. Okay. And I want you to go put a tee right next to the hole where you think the furthest part of this break is going to be. So if you think this putt's going to break out here, right to left, I want you to put a tee right here. If you think it's going to break here, I want you to put a tee right there. Okay. So take a look at the putt and see what you think. And go put a tee where you think that putt's going to break, at the highest point of the putt. Okay, good. And there's no wrong answers. This is how we learn. That's a good way to do it, looking behind the hole. I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well, and I'm going to talk a little bit about feeling it with your feet as well, which is what you see maybe Adam Scott do. You'll notice Adam Scott will straddle the line, meaning if his putt's here, he's going to go and he tries to straddle the line. What he's actually doing is he's trying to feel the slope with his feet. And that is kind of a new way of putting. It's called aim point. You may have seen it on TV, you know, where you'll have a 20-footer, it'll be Zach Johnson, and it'll say this putt will break 2 feet 2 inches to the right and, you know, maybe 3 inches downhill. So what Adam Scott is trying to do is he's coming up to this putt, and he's going to maybe pick a spot in the putt, maybe somewhere in the middle of the putt or where he thinks the highest point of the break is going to be in the putt. And what he's actually doing is he's just standing there and he's relaxing his body, and he's trying to feel the weight of his body move with the slope. And he's going to do that a lot more on putts that have a lot of break to them. You know, they won't do it a lot on as much on flat putts. He might, you know, some people are different. But what he's doing is he's really trying to feel what that slope is doing, and then he's coming back and he's picking a spot. And it's a very complicated system. I don't want to get into all of it right now, but he's actually picking a spot where he thinks is, let's say, 2 degrees of break. So you'll see him put up 2 fingers. That means he's thinking it's 2 degrees of break. And then what he's doing is he's actually lining up with his fingers where he thinks the highest point of that putt is going to break. It's a very complicated way of putting, but your eyes lie to you. You know, when you stand behind a putt, you may look at this and go, okay, you know, I see this slope a little right to left, but you may go up and hit the putt and not see a slope that's over here that may be influencing the putt to push it back to the right. So it's very important to understand how you're reading it, and we can do some experimenting with that, with feeling it with your feet and you know, trying that at some other time. But let's see, did you guys all put one down? Oh, we got 2 more. Where do you think that putt's going to break? Highest point. Gonna go way out there, okay?
Yeah.
All right. We got 1 left. Okay, he's going right inside. Okay, so we got 3 pretty close together there. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and roll the ball right at the middle of those 3 tees. See what it does. And you can see it's breaking. Should have brought that ramp out. Okay, so now let's go all the way out by that far tee where Mr. Tipple had it. And you can see I hit it slightly right of it, but it actually didn't break as much going that far out.
Sure.
But what's funny is when I actually go towards the other tees, which are a little bit closer, it actually does take the break a little bit more. And I think the reason is it's very difficult to see, but this is kind of a flat area right here, believe it or not. You can see this slope here kind of influences the putt right off the bat. And then right when you get up in here, inside of this tee actually has a little bit more break right to left. Very difficult to see. So you actually can't really tell that this is a flat area here because you're seeing this little slope here, and it actually kind of stops right about where that tee is. The slope kind of stops. It's not a big slope, but you can see where the slope ends. Barely, but it's there. So basically, I'd rather you read the putt with too much break than not enough break. So I'm glad you guys all picked too much break versus not enough break. Because a lot of amateurs will miss putts low because they won't see enough break. So reading slopes you know, like I said, you can feel slopes with your feet. Great ways to do it is to walk around, look behind the putt. You know, if you can't tell what it's doing, come back here and try and see what the slope is doing. Try and get a different look at the putt. You can even
seeing anything different from there?
I am actually. You can actually predominantly see this slope a tiny bit more because you're standing here and it's going a little bit slightly uphill. So if you stand back here and look, you can almost see there's just a slight slope there from left to right. So that's basically how we can read greens with the eyes. You know, you can look at it in all different ways. You can even come from the side here and see if you see anything, you know, this way, you know, coming from a side angle. You can look at it all different ways. There's no wrong way really to read putts. You know, there are ways that are better than others. You know, Mrs. Schmid was talking about plumb bobbing, and that's when you kind of stand behind it and try and, you know, see a line with your putter. If you want to do that, that's great. I think you get a little bit better of a look getting down to the ground because you can kind of see it better. But if you're standing on a slope like this and you're looking at a putt, the putt might look straight to you because you're already on that slope. You know, so you have to make sure, you know, you're seeing things correctly in what you're looking at. So, like I said before, the best way to look at putts, you know, is look at the slope surrounding it, especially when you're further away. If I'm 30 feet away and I'm looking at this putt, I have to make sure that I know that this slope is going to bring it left to right, but I also have to factor in what's going on over here. This putt will be left to right the whole way, just because the slope continues to go this way. But on the golf course, you're going to find some locations where there might be a slope here that's got a bunker. You know, there's a bunker here, and there may be a little rise in the green right here, and there might be a tiny slope that comes all the way to here. So you have to really think about, you know, if this putt looks left to right, I have to consider that this right to left slope might counteract that left to right putt. So it's very important to make sure that you look at the putt. You know, if it's a longer putt and it's got a lot of break to it, or you see a lot of surrounding slopes, just make sure you double check that and look at, you know, and see what exactly you're looking at. Any questions on reading or anything like that? Or does anybody have trouble reading greens? Not really? No? That's good.
What would you say about our two courses here?
That's a great question because we have two different courses here. You know, we have a Joe Lee design Golden Marsh, which is almost every green is front to back. It actually is every green is front to back. So you get a lot of slopes in the middle of the greens, and then if you go above the hole, you're going to have a downhill putt every single time. You know, there's just no way around it just because of the way the greens are sloped. Now when you're, you know, pitching, chipping, stuff like that into the green, it's helpful because you're always chipping uphill. So the other course, which is a Pete Dye, which everybody knows Pete Dye has crazy greens, very sloped. I mean, you can be above the hole and have an uphill putt, you can be above the hole and have a downhill putt, or a crazy left to right or right to left putt. So it just depends on what you get, and you definitely have to pay attention more to that out there than you do, you know, on the marsh as much. You know, the ridge is definitely something you have to look at. And the last quick thing I'm just going to mention is, does anybody know about grain? The grain of the grass? Basically the grain, especially in Florida, very important to know where you're playing, what type of grasses you're on. Predominantly in Florida, everything's Bermuda, so you're going to get grain. And what the grain does is it influences where the putt is going to break even more so because of the way the grass is growing. Now you can tell the way the grain is growing by the cup. I don't know if you can see this. This cup right here has a little bit of a burnt edge on this side of the hole. And what that means is that's the way the grass, so the grass is growing this way. So if I go like this, you can see the grass is lifting up. So if I go like this, it smooths it back out. So this grass is actually growing this way, or I'm sorry, it's growing this way, you know, down. So if you hit a putt from back here, it's going to be faster because of the grain. The grain is actually helping push the ball more because the grass is flat. If you were coming back this way, even if it wasn't uphill, you're pushing back into the grain, so the putt's going to be slower. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're on the course, because if you're down here and you got this putt and you see this grain pointing right at you, think I have to hit it just a little bit harder because that grain's going to slow the ball down. It's a very important thing to know out here. You go up north, play in, you know, anywhere basically above Florida. You know, in Georgia you'll have some better grasses. You go up north, you're definitely going to find predominantly bent grass, and that grass pretty much has no grain whatsoever. So you're going to basically get what you see. So anybody have any questions about grain?
Does it generally grow in any relevance to the sun?
Yes, it does. Yeah, yeah. Typically, you'll hear like if guys are on TV announcing a golf tournament, you'll typically hear the grain always goes towards the setting sun. Typically, not always. Or you'll hear, you know, the grain goes towards the water a lot. You know, it grows towards like a lake or, you know, a little canal or whatever. So that's definitely true. They do say sometimes the grain will set towards the sun, depending on where you are. But typically, yes.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed is that when you're looking with the grain, it's shinier.
That's
If you're looking
Great
back
question.
into the grain,
That's
it's
true.
darker colored.
Yeah, that can be true